Hello, Hearthstone fans, and welcome back to the Tespa Collegiate Series. We just saw Rutgers take down Vassar in spectacular 3-1 fashion, sending them to the live championships in Santa Ana, California. That is going to be awesome for them, but it is time to figure out who we are sending to meet them. I'm Robbie Waddles-Lang. Here with me today is my buddy, my co-caster, and my roommate, all wrapped up in one. It is Mr. Jonathan Gilstrom-Owsley, and our next matchup is going to be Tufts versus EPM. We saw EPM a little bit today, or a little bit yesterday. We got to cast Brio, who was on his own. That was a lot of fun. But before we get into that, we are going to take a look at the East bracket. Oh, actually, no, we're just going to get right into the match.
Alrighty.
So yeah, EPM, that is l'École Polytechnique de Montréal. I'm not going to say that too many times today. EPM is going to work just fine, and they're going to go up against Tufts University. And like we said yesterday, or like I said earlier, yesterday from EPM, we had just one player. That was Brio. He did a really good job, and he said his teammates are going to be joining him today.
Yeah, so we have Tufts University going with Rogue, Hunter, Warlock, and Warrior, and EPM going with the Warrior, Priest, Warlock, and Rogue that we saw them go with yesterday.
All right, so shouldn't be, well, you know, I say it shouldn't be too much different, but this is, of course, Ungoro, and there are a lot of changing things. Cora and Admiral touched on it a little bit earlier. These teams could switch their decks a lot, just not the classes that they are playing. So for Tufts University, we've got JLY, Theodoratry, and Peiwu. Got some computer science, electrical engineering for Peiwu, and this is an interesting one, history and computer science. That is not a combination you see very often.
No, but a very awesome combination of
it
that.
Is.
Pursuing his passions, I really do appreciate that.
Absolutely. So these guys are going to be looking to take down EPM, who did put on such a strong showing yesterday, and look like, well, we do have another guy on the screen there, so it's not going to be a solo effort against EPM. That would have been a little bit ironic after Brio was on his own yesterday. So we're going to get a look over now at the rest of the EPM roster. We saw Brio yesterday doing a great job in carrying his team through. We've got Emi Saihi and Frank Shadow, a bunch of computer engineers from l'École Polytechnique de Montréal.
Yeah, you know, really awesome performance from Brio yesterday, and really excited to see what the full team can actually do. And here we see on screen the whole team together. It seems like they're talking quite a bit, so a lot of discussion going on. So we'll see if that can affect and improve their gameplay for today's match.
Got some good spirit wear sweaters there for those guys as well. So they are prepped, they are pumped, and they are looking to carry on through to the top 8 at the live championships. Remember, guys, this is all to get there. These top 16 teams just have to win one game today, and whoever does is moving on to those live championships. That is just so cool for these teams, and I cannot wait to see which of these two it is going to be. Yeah. We're going to get back into these team bans just real quick and see who they decided, what class they decided to take out for themselves. Tufts going to take out that Rogue, which is slightly interesting. That has been a very strong class in general. And over on l'École Polytechnique, they're taking out the Warlock, same as yesterday. Yeah,
the Warlock ban, as you said, same as yesterday. And the Rogue ban, a little bit interesting. As we said before, these teams are required to play the same classes, but they can switch deck lists between matches and between days.
Right.
So we'll have to see if EPM is running the same deck list that they ran yesterday. And we've seen just a lot of evolution in the Ungoro meta just overnight. So we've seen, you know, the Quest Rogue kind of move back a little bit, and the Miracle Rogue has actually been popping up a little bit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that has been, we've been seeing that a lot, and I mean, actually kind of all the casters have been seeing a lot of Miracle Rogue from yesterday to today, and so that could be something that we see, like you said. These teams do have a chance. If they see one archetype is getting a little better than another, they can bring that the next day instead, which is why we've seen already a couple Pirate Warriors today, and it looks like in this Warrior matchup, it is not going to be a mirror. It is going to be that Pirate Warrior for Tufts, and EPM going to be sticking with that Taunt Warrior that looks like pretty much the same list as yesterday, at least with this mulligan so far.
Yeah, so the Taunt Warrior, very control-y, running executes, brawls, shield slams, shield blocks, dirty rats as well. Yep. So a lot of utility and a lot of versatility as far as being able to fend off the aggression of the Pirate Warrior. However, on the Pirate Warrior side, we see a very interesting new card, the Ravasaur Runt, coming out for them, and if EPM plays the quest on this turn and is not able to clear off one of those pirates, that could be a very impactful card coming into turn 2.
Yeah, and there's no way, unless with a good draw here, and that's going to miss. So EPM has no way to clear a minion off of the board here, which means that the Ravasaur Runt is going to come down for a free adaptation, a 2/2 minion that can go any direction there. That's going to have a lot of power, and that's a very interesting card to see in this Pirate Warrior. I haven't seen any lists running that, but clearly it's going to get a lot of value here.
Yeah, the 2-drop slot been historically a little weak for the Pirate Warrior. You're generally relying on that Bloodsail Raider.
Corsair. Yeah. Oh no, you're right. You're right.
And you know, when you run off the N'Zoth's first mate, you get that one weapon. The 2-mana 3/3 is still very strong, but it's not the versatility that you really want. And the Ravasaur Runt, you know, if you do play that pirate on turn 1 and neither of the pirates die, you get the adaptation as we are about to see right here.
And that is just, it goes along with another card that we've been seeing a lot of lately. That's the Vicious Fletchling. We saw it yesterday on stream doing a lot of work, getting a lot of Wind Fury procs and a bunch of plus attacks. And this Ravasaur Runt kind of has the same kind of an idea, but with with a barrier of entry instead. It's not I throw the 3/3 down on the board, and if they ignore it, I do well. It's I put some tokens on the board, and if they can't deal with that, which a lot of decks early on, especially if they're playing Quest turn 1, exactly like you said, they're not going to have a way to deal with that.
So we have 3 options right here. We have Liquid Membrane, can't be targeted by spells or hero power, Massive, giving it Taunt, and Crackling Shield for Divine Shield. Crackling Shield, generally the one that you're going to want to go with off the Ravasaur Runt, because if we all remembered back to the days of GVG, everyone does remember Shielded Minibot, and I don't think anyone would argue that that was a bad card.
No, that was just a value bomb for the Paladins. That was always a hassle to work around. So Tufts getting their makeshift Shielded Minibot in the form of that Ravasaur Runt is going to be feeling pretty good going into turn 3 here. EPM has not done a whole lot other than play that quest, and so they are looking to answer back.
So 7 taunts over the course of the game that will unlock Sulfuris, replacing their hero power with Ragnaros, die insect, deal 8 damage to a random target on the enemy board. So we'll see that a little bit later, but Fiery War Axe drawn into the hand of EPM, something that they would have loved to see had the Bloodsail Raider come down for the side of Tufts, but that Divine Shield is going to be a pain to deal with.
All right, so the one thing we have to think about here is the Dirty Rat, because there aren't that many targets in the Pirate Warrior deck that you are really scared of Dirty Ratting out. There are a couple of them in Tufts' hand, though, which is why I wanted to bring that up. You do not want to throw a free South Sea Captain on the board. Instead, they are going to play, it looks a little around the South Sea Captain, but they're just making sure that they get 1 token off of the board. Of course, if they attacked into the Ravasaur Runt, they're still going to have 3 minions on the board and be taking a lot of damage next turn.
Yeah, typically 3 different types of 3-drops that we see coming out on the turn 3 for Pirate Warrior. We have the Frothing Berserker and the South Sea Captain that we see in the hand of Tufts. And then generally the one that most people play around is going to be that Bloodsail Cultist, giving your weapon 1 extra attack. So Tufts having the opportunity to develop either that Frothing Berserker or the South Sea Captain, and with the trade into the N'Zoth's first mate with that weapon, the South Sea Captain looks a little less
enticing.
Enticing. That's a great word for it, especially with the Fire War Axe already active for EPM.
Right. I do want to touch a little bit on the last time that we saw this. We actually saw this matchup last series. At the end of it, the Pirate Warrior versus that Taunt Warrior matchup. And the way that went, the Pirate Warrior in last game, Rutgers just got a massive early board. And it was crazy strong. And you know, Vaster really didn't have a chance to get back on the board. So sometimes the Pirate Warrior can high roll like that. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because Tufts hasn't high rolled that hard as we saw Rutgers do the last game. It is a really, really solid start here. Don't get me wrong at all, but they're not overwhelming favorites right now, I don't think, in this game.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the context of their hand. We see a Heroic Strike and a Leroy Jenkins, and I think that has to have been their motivation for playing that South Sea Captain on the previous turn. Frothing Berserker isn't contested directly by the Fiery War Axe. However, with no pirates in hand and only having the patches on the board, I have to imagine they wanted to get that early to get the extra value off the patches, get the last charge out of the War Axe, and they can continue to develop. But, you know, looking at the context of their hand, the Heroic Strike and the Leroy Jenkins, great for pushing final lethal damage, but not really going to help them solidify the board through this mid-game.
And EPM, it puts them in a bit of a quandary. You know, your opponent throws down the South Sea Captain, a 3/3 minion. When you have that Fiery War Axe up, and, you know, it's basically offering that free trade, and you sit there maybe and think, do they want me to do this for some reason? Am I getting somehow debated in this play? But, you know, it is a South Sea Captain that is going to be pretty much the priority target, and so no, not too much confusion for them. Just maybe threw them for a tiny loop.
Yeah, so EPM getting a little bit low here, down to 19 life in total. Their draws have been very, very heavy. The Shield Slam generally been not being able to interact with the board because of that Divine Shield. And that Divine Shield has just been doing a ton of work here for Tufts. That 2 damage repetitive over time is not something that the Pirate Warrior is very used to, especially for the 2-drop in the 2-drop slot. So that has been very, very strong for them. You know, Execute with these low health minions, haven't been able to use that either. Dirty Rat kind of risky, pulling out things like the Frothing Berserker or the South Sea Captain, as we had mentioned. And then just the Primordial Drake, way, way long off from that. The Alley Armorsmith was a great pickup, and I have to imagine they're going to use the coin on that in the following turn.
Yeah, I would imagine that as well. That Ravasaur Runt with that Divine Shield, it's good into taunt still, but you know the taunt is the best way to counter it. For EPM, they can't afford to use 2 weapon charges on a 2/2 minion with Divine Shield, and so like you were saying, it just has to stay there on that board. Ooh, I see why. I see where that ooh is coming from there, Galestrom. The Ravaging Ghoul allows the coin proc into the Execute on the Frothing Berserker. That would leave just a 2/2 minion on the board and tempo into Alley Armorsmith next turn. That does look like a pretty possible play here.
Yeah, you see them discussing on the player cams. You know, you have to imagine that they're discussing, do you coin out the Alley Armorsmith now? And that Frothing Berserker makes that a lot less enticing. The Ravaging Ghoul going to come down, coin Execute, that's going to clear off the patches, that will clear off the Frothing Berserker, leaving a 2/2 Ravasaur Runt and only burn damage in the hand. However, we do have to mention that is 10 damage burst for 7 mana, and they're sitting at a lowly 14 life.
Yeah, that is a lot of burst from hand, which EPM, of course, you're playing the Pirate Warrior, you pretty much know their range. You've got the 2 Heroic Strikes, 2 Mortal Strikes, and a Leroy that you really need to watch out for. Maybe an Arcanite, but that's a pretty expensive drop in any sort of a lethal combo. So, you know, they definitely have the math on their side, and that it's very easy to figure out the range of Tufts. The problem is that the range can just get ridiculous. It's no good finding out the range if that range is just going to kill you no matter what you do next turn.
And this Alley Armorsmith here for EPM is going to prove absolutely huge coming up in this next turn. Tufts having a very difficult decision. Do they want to develop the South Sea Captain and the Heroic Strike, or do they just want a Hero Power alongside the South Sea Captain? You have to imagine that card will come down just to solidify a wider board presence. But there has to be some discussion as to a potential Leroy Jenkins as well.
Yeah, that would be very interesting here. Leroy comes right on down. And this, okay, so this is a play that we saw very similar to a play earlier on in the series. I'm not remembering the exact details, but this leaves Mortal Strike as an out if there is a taunt played on the board. So that is exactly what they were trying to do here. They're making it so no matter what EPM does here, they still have a good chance. Of course, okay, so
there is the armor.
Exactly. So the armor up is going to be the mitigating circumstance there. But it now forces EPM into this super awkward turn because they know exactly what's up, and it's not hard for them to have some sort of a makeshift read. Oh, clearly they have Mortal Strike in their hand, or they're just drawing for it. Either way, that's super dangerous for me. So the Alley Armorsmith looking a little less enticing, to bring back that word.
Yeah, Tufts putting EPM in a very awkward board state because you want to thread that hero power, and you are weak to the Mortal Strike, and the Taunt Warrior just in general has a lot of solid 5-drops. We have that Alley Armorsmith and that Direhorn Hatchling, both very large taunts that are really hard for the Pirate Warrior to punch through, especially once the Leroy Jenkins has already been dropped onto the board.
Yeah, a lot of stats in that booty end, as Sottle might like to say. Those 2 7s and the 3 6s will stand quite a big wall, form quite a big wall. But like you said, we are looking for that Mortal Strike. Can Tufts get the top deck to end this game right here? Because we did not see the armor up. It is not going to be the top deck they're looking for, and this game continues on. EPM very likely will be able to armor up next turn, so maybe out of the woods a little bit here.
Yeah, very likely that they will be able to stabilize beyond this point. Alley Armorsmith will be able to either trade or hit into the face and gain them an extra 2 life. The armor up on top of that will put them up to 8, and that will make it very, very difficult for Tufts to get through not only Alley Armorsmith, but the remaining 8 health of EPM with the resources that they have in their hand right now.
All right, so this is going to be, I mean, bringing up to 8 almost immediately means that we're already basically in 2 turns out of double Mortal Strike range. So as long as EPM can manage to keep a taunt on the board for basically ever, I guess, they will be able to sustain through this game. The problem is, of course, in the Pirate Warrior deck, you just have so much damage for such efficient mana and so few cards that sometimes you can just overwhelm the opponent before they're able to find all those taunts.
So EPM has a very, very strong turn here, being able to potentially play the Dirty Rat. They're discussing amongst themselves what the potential options are to be pulling out of the hand of Tufts. With Leroy Jenkins down, you have to imagine Korkron Elite is probably what they're discussing. They play that. They know that is going to be a spell, something along the lines of Heroic Strike, Upgrade, Mortal Strike. So those are the cards that they're going to be playing around, or a weapon.
Yeah, so pretty easy for them to assume just 4 damage in the hand and leave it there. And
having the read that there's no minion in the hand of Tufts, that makes the Shield Slam on the Bloodsail Raider a lot more favorable, because you will be able to... So you had the option to hit the face with the Ali Armorsmith Armor Up and then use the Shield Slam on the minion, because you know that they don't have any more minions in the hand. They're going to save that, go a little bit wider on the board, and hope that... and actually, Tufts doesn't have a 2-card out in this situation, because they are not below that 12 life threshold, meaning that Mortal Strike will not kill them.
Yeah, and the thing, too, is, you know, whether you armor up or you attack with that Ali Armorsmith, either way, you're putting yourself up to 6, and they just wanted to make sure they were outside of single Mortal Strike range. There's not enough mana for double Mortal Strike, of course, so like you said, there's no 2-card out here for Tufts. EPM playing very smart and giving themselves every chance in the world to come back. Getting to turn 8 is going to be a big deal for that Primordial Drake, and then just not running out of steam after that. But Tufts is pretty much out of steam here, so they've got maybe a draw or 2 left to find some sort of way to power through this, but it is looking increasingly likely that EPM comes out with this win.
So going to go with the Heroic Strike here. That will take out the Ali Armorsmith, going to develop the Arcanate Reaper behind them. That will allow them to potentially get an upgrade over the course of the next couple turns, punch through that Dirty Rat, punch face, and if they get something along the lines of an upgrade plus some other form of damage, and EPM does not isn't able to develop taunts across the board, which until the draw of the Stonehill Defender, they wouldn't have been able to.
This, at that point, we're getting close, I think, to a Tufts concede. Maybe after the next draw, maybe looking for some sort of an out for that upgrade, maybe. But even that, like you said, it's getting pretty dicey right now as to whether that would even turn into a game win here. So 6-3 weapon is nothing to laugh at, but these are a lot of taunts on the board, and the Stonehill Defender, you can just chain into those at this point, and that has to be a serious consideration. Do I put 2 1/4 taunts on the board this turn? That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, Mogushan Warden, a card that we almost never see, is also, you know, an option here.
It's like a really bad public defender.
Yeah, but, but they have exactly 4 mana remaining. If they do pick the Stonehill Defender, they won't be able to armor up alongside that. So that extra 3 health for the 1 extra mana on the Mogushan Warden could be very, very strong. However, the Stonehill Defender being able to give them another taunt would be a very good play as well. Going to decide to go with the Direhorn Hatchling, give them a little more pressure on the board, as both the Stonehill Defender and the Mogushan Warden have only 1 attack. So that Direhorn going to be able to pressure a little bit harder.
And I think the biggest reason they didn't go for the Stonehill there, it's not surprising they went for the Direhorn Hatchling over the Mogushan to me, but I think the reason they avoided that Stonehill Defender was because they're playing that Primordial Drake very likely next turn, and they feel pretty secure in their taunts either way, no matter which way they go about it. The Ali Armorsmith draw just going to continue to lock this game up for EPM. Again, I'm failing to see many situations in which Tufts comes out with the win here, but EPM continuing to play the smart game. Make sure, no matter what, you don't miss anything in this situation.
Yeah, the swing of this game was teetering on a knife's edge just a couple turns ago. EPM has been able to turn it around, solidify their board of taunts, and Tufts, just with the dead draws, they've had the Bloodsail Raider, the second South Sea Captain, and right now the Bloodsail Corsair. So
even that Heroic Strike, if that were a minion, they'd be in a much better position right now.
Yeah, so just minion after minion after they've already lost the board really, really hurts for the Pirate Warrior. They want to be seeing direct damage, and the more and more taunts that they see come up on the board of EPM, the less and less likely Tufts is able to get through these taunts and then punch through the continual 2 armor that they're getting per turn.
Wow, so there was, after all of this game, there was exactly 1 opportunity for Tufts to pull the win out. It was the top deck Mortal Strike when EPM was at 4 health and they played the Ali Armorsmith instead of armoring up. So EPM played a nearly perfect game here, and you know, you can't fault them for leaving that up to chance because the Ally Armorsmith looked a lot better than the Dirty Rat armor up that turn.
At that point, they really played to their outs. They wanted to say, okay, if you have Mortal Strike, you win the game. If not, and we play the Ally Armorsmith here, we absolutely win the game.
Yeah.
So, you know, a little bit of a coin flip in that situation, but the odds definitely in their favor.
Yeah, that was very well played. And I have to say, going back, looking at the old Pirate Warrior match from last series and then this one from this series, again, they just didn't high roll enough. Even the Nizas first mate into Ravasaur run when Patches wasn't killed was not, and then into South Sea Captain, which may have done it if EPM had not made the very smart play of trading into the Nizas first mate and getting rid of that buff.
Yeah, that was a very good read on the South Sea Captain here. And just we have to mention the Pirate Warrior. They want to get ahead on board. They did a really good job doing that, and then they want to draw the burn damage. However, they had the burn damage in their hand a little too early, and then they kept drawing board mechanics. So not really the opportunity for them to push through. They played to their outs, and it didn't end up paying off for them.
All right, so EPM is going to pick up game number 1 in this series, pushing them one step closer to those live championships. Of course, there will be finals at some point, but it's going to be the top 8, and they are hoping to join that top 8. Tufts, though, they need 3 wins now with all of their decks, of course. Do they switch it up, or do they bring a Pirate Warrior? Pirate Warrior looks all right into the Rogue, but we have to remember what EPM's Priest lineup was yesterday. It was a very board-centric Dragon Priest with some elemental aspects mixed in. We don't know if they've changed that, obviously, but it was a very solid list, and I honestly would be surprised if they changed it.
Yeah, no, it performed for them very, very well. And even the matchup they had yesterday, it went into the Control Warrior. So, and looking at Tufts' lineup here, that looks very, very aggressive. You know, the Warrior is going to be a Pirate Warrior. You're looking at a Hunter, and the Warlock is most likely going to be a Zoo Discard Warlock.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, you know, the Warrior out of the way, that was a really solid win for them. They have the Dragon Priest that will also be able to control these more aggressive matchups. And then the big question mark here for me is going to be that Rogue. Are they playing the Questing Rogue, or sorry, the Quest Rogue, like they had played yesterday, or have they switched the list up? And either way, the Rogue list has a very difficult time dealing with that early board aggression. Yeah,
that is going to be something that we have to watch out for. When they pull out that Rogue, they're going to have to make sure that they manage to find a win with it at some point, because I think that's a great point to highlight here, because, like you said, Tufts' full aggro lineup, very likely. It's looking very much like that, and yeah, I think that's going to be a key matchup to keep an eye out for. But in the meantime, we are going to see EPM bringing out the Priest, and Tufts is going to stick along with that Pirate Warrior, trying to grab that win before they move on. So the thing we're looking here for Priest, they're going to have the early board no matter what. This deck does early board and mid-game board especially.
Mid-game board is the key. They lost a lot of the early board.
Yeah, I guess a little bit of a misspeak there. It's a lot of mid-game board.
And the Twilight Whelp leaving. They do have more control elements in this deck. They're running 2 Bookworms. They're running the 2 Primordial Drakes, and that's going to be the big one. The 8 mana, 4/8 taunt that just deals 2 damage AoE to the board. And then, you know, 2 Shadow Word Pains. The Shadow Visions are going to let them find more Shadow Word Pains. So that's going to be something to look out for in the next couple turns.
So the early plan is going to be get something on the board for EPM and then transition it into hopefully a taunt later on. This hand from Tufts, oh my goodness. I'll see you turn 4.
That is very, very slow. They did not hit their 1-drop, and they're just running a lot of burn damage in their hand. And as we said before, they are looking for board presence early, especially against the Dragon Priest in this situation that can get you know, larger board board minions on the board later around turn 4 with those Twilight Drakes and the Cabal Talon Priests.
Right. I'm looking through the plays here for Tufts. Next turn, if you don't do anything this turn, next turn you can coin Fiery War Axe into the Bloodsail Corsair, and that would be a massive tempo swing and probably what they're looking for here. The only reason I don't necessarily like this play is because it gives a lot of information about their hand to EPM. If they had coined Fiery War Axe, that's a standard play that, you know, is just, you know, I'm missing a 1-drop, but my hand might not be that bad. This gives a lot of information over to EPM, I think.
Yeah, so another Smite Historian going to come down here for EPM, and a lot of slow options. You know, we've lost, as we said, a lot of the early game dragons for Priest with Blackrock Mountain rolling out of the standard rotation. So we see Scaled Nightmare, a card that we haven't really seen in competitive play for, you know, probably ever. We have the Bookworm and the Deathwing. Bookworm going to give you the largest body for the cheapest mana cost and give you the most impact on the board. So, you know, pretty likely that they're going to pick that choice.
Yep, with 2 Bookworms in hand mean that as soon as they get to that turn 6 and that turn 7, there are going to be some pirates disappearing from the board pretty much every turn. That's going to be a lot of tempo swing in their favor. And so Tufts, it is going to be on them to get out ahead here and get out ahead here early. Do they trade with the War Axe or do they run it face?
The Nether Sprite Historian really isn't applying any pressure to the board. You know you're going to be playing that Bloodsail Corsair in the next couple turns. The only thing that the Nether Sprite Historian does is it contests cards like N'Zoth's First Mate, Patches. So a little unfortunate here for Tufts that they did draw that N'Zoth's First Mate off the top. Would have loved to see that card last turn. Just unfortunate for them that they got it just a turn too late.
Yeah, that would have absolutely been a pretty ideal start for them. Just that N'Zoth's First Mate. I don't think, any one drop is Warrior is pretty good, but then N'Zoth's First Mate feels really good in any matchup. So that Cabal Talon Priest now has no target to throw that +3 health on, but like you said, whether that Nether Sprite Historian was a 1-3 or a 1-6, it wasn't really going to be contributing a lot to the board. So the 3-4 body still feels pretty good here.
Yeah, vanilla 3 mana, 3-4, good old Spider Tank feels pretty good here. Contest that Bloodsail Corsair just as well. So that looks to be the most ideal play in this situation. Going a little bit back and forth, you have to imagine that Shadow Vision's potentially getting a Shadow Word Pain, as we said earlier, or just another board clear. The Holy Nova and Dragonfire Potion, one ofs, I believe, in as well in the deck.
Okay.
So, oh no, 1 Holy Nova and 2 Dragonfire Potions is what we saw yesterday.
Okay, yeah, right. So that is going to mean that Shadow Visions has a high likelihood of finding that Dragonfire Potion. And there aren't really many more spells in the priest deck, so I imagine it's going to be basically Shadow Visions, Dragonfire Potion, and the 2 Shadow Words that are going to be the 4 options there, and you're going to get 3 of them.
As well as that Power Word Shield.
Oh, yeah, of course. The Power Word Shield, the tempo gain that priest is ever so famous for.
So, looking over the hand of Tufts, they have just drawn an upgrade, so that is going to be very, very nice with this Fiery War Axe. However, that will leave the N'Zoth's First Mate stranded in their hand for a couple more turns. So either the upgrade would allow them to trade the weapon into the Cabal Talon Priest, leave their board alive, but they would just have to develop the hero power alongside of that, because if you're running in, you can't use that Heroic Strike, nor can you play the N'Zoth's First Mate because it would override your weapon.
Right, so that is definitely a lot of weird things to be considering here for Tufts, and just weapon management is something that a lot of players have to pay a lot of attention to, especially when considering that N'Zoth's First Mate. It will override anything that you've got there. They decided to throw the upgrade down. So if an Arcanite Reaper is drawn in the next couple cards, that N'Zoth's First Mate likely will just be sitting in the hand pretty much till the end of the game, but that's a loss that they're accepting right now.
So second Shadow Vision's in the hand of EPM makes their hand very, very straightforward. They are given Shadow Word Pain, Dragonfire Potion, and Shadow Word Death. 3 of the 5 options that we had listed earlier. As I said, Shadow Word Pain, just a huge, huge card in this matchup.
Yep.
Now they have 2 more remaining in their deck. A bookworm in hand, a bookworm from the Nether Sprite Historian, and another bookworm in their deck.
Oh my goodness.
So there's so many Shadow Word Pain effects available to EPM here that they're going to be able to continually control the board. The big question here is they don't have all the taunts that they had last game, in the Warrior list.
Right.
So those Primordial Drakes are going to be blocking the face damage coming out here for Tufts. So can they make it to that point? Can they get to the point where they can stabilize behind a Primordial Drake plus these health buffs like the Power Word Shield and the Cabal Talon Priest?
And I think that's a good point to bring up as well, because it's not like last game where EPM reaches a certain point and they're safe until the end of the game. They have stabilized and they're done. This is going to be a fight till the end, no matter what, because like you said, they just have fewer taunts, and a lot more of the damage from the Pirate Warrior is going to be able to reach their face. This is a little bit of an awkward turn for them because they're on that 5 mana. They don't want a Holy Nova. They can't get to the Bookworms yet, so basically forced into a Shadow Visions, and they can't even play a Power Word Shield, so this is about their entire turn here. Yeah,
so a little bit of a whiff here on that Shadow Visions. They were looking for the Dragonfire Potion, not being able to interact with that Kor'kron Elite, having 4 attack, and you see here the Power Word Shield going to come down on the patches because they need to find that Dragonfire Potion.
That makes a lot of sense.
If they don't find that, Tufts' board is just going to be able to stick around for a couple more turns, and that will be too much pressure for the Dragon Priest to be able to deal with.
I really like that play of the Power Word Shield on the patches. It doesn't really do anything against you by any means. If you Holy Nova now, the patches stays alive. That is about the worst drawback of that play. And you get the extra card. You fill out the rest of your turn, which was just a good draw for them as well.
So now this White Historian going to come down over the choice of the hero power. A lot of high dragons once again. The Alexstrasza going to be the pickup there, just in case they get a little bit low. So we see Alexstrasza on the side of the board there. 9 mana, 8/8 battle cry set your hero or a hero's health to 15.
Right.
So if they are stabilizing behind that Primordial Drake around that kind of like, 2, 3 very sketchy health mark, the Alexstrasza will be able to bump them back up, and that could be the stabilization that they need if they're able to get through these next couple turns.
And it does look like they're going to be able to get through these next couple turns. The only mitigating factor for me is that Cork Run, because they have no way to deal with it. That's so hard. But the rest of their curve is amazing. Bookworm, Primordial Drake, Alexstrasza. Just that Cork Run is putting everything in a tizzy, and with all of the hand damage in Tufts' hand, that is going to be a significant problem.
So Tufts here probably just determining how wide they want to go onto the board. They know they're going into a Dragonfire Potion turn, and they know that EPM was digging for something. They saw that Power Word Shield on the minion on the patches instead of their own minion. So that really gives them a lot of information to the context of their hand. Radiant Elemental, not going to be the card.
No, and so if we take the Bookworm into the South Sea Captain, leaves 6 damage on board. There's then 6 mana in hand, 6 mana for Tufts. That's going to be 8 damage in hand. Yeah, this is... I don't think that EPM lives past this turn, even if they heal up, and they can't heal up and Holy Nova either.
Yeah, so you have the Shadow Word Pain instead of the Bookworm on the South Sea Captain, and that will let you heal up. But as you said, there is going to be 6 damage on the board plus the 1 from the weapon, 8 from hand.
So that would put you at
15 damage, and you cannot heal above that 15 damage life hold. So it looks like game number 2 will be going to Tufts on the coming turn.
Wow. Just in time for them too. That Cork Run was about the perfect thing to play there. Of course, the Priest cannot do anything to 4 attack minions. The Bookworms can't do anything to that either. There are a lot of other scenarios where EPM comes out winning this game. They had a great basically they had a great job setting up their hand to once they got to this point. That double Bookworm, the Primordial Drake, Alexstrasza, if they had been able to just play that curve out and sustain up to that Alexstrasza, I don't think they lose this game, but definitely went a little bit against them. Tufts found the cards they needed this time around, and EPM was not able to leave them as few outs as Tufts was looking at last game.
Yeah, no, the Dragon Priest currently is very much control-based and not the Dragon Priest of old. The Dragon Priest of old could contest the board, and as more tech cards went into Defender of Argus, Potion of Madness, the Dragon Priest actually got the upper hand in the Pirate Warrior matchup. However, now the Dragon Warrior lists are relying on big board swings, such as double Dragonfire Potion, that Holy Nova, and things like the Shadow Word Pains and the Bookworms. But those cards are very, very expensive, particularly the Bookworms and the AoE effects. So not being able to interact with that Cork Run really, left the game in the hands of the Pirate Warrior. Absolutely.
Keeping that 4-3 on board is just so dangerous and provides so much damage for those guys. So this series is going to be tied up at 1-1, a Warrior win apiece for these guys, which means we are going to have the Priest and the Rogue trying to find wins against the aggro lineup of, well, what we're thinking is probably an aggro lineup coming out of Tufts here with a Warlock and a Hunter. Look like 2 very aggro classes to me.
Yeah, so the Hunter list, we've seen a couple different variations, specifically the mid-range Hunter and a more aggressive Hunter. So we'll have to see which list Tufts comes out with. The mid-range list running stuff like the Nesting Rock and Tundra Rhinos and more late-game threats.
Right.
And we have the aggro Hunter running a lot more early-game board flood. You see sometimes even the Pirate package included as well.
All right, so Tufts here, we can see them getting ready for their next game, hoping to sweep it. From here, they got that 1 win. They're hoping to keep up that momentum as we get into this next one. And I have received word, I believe this is going to be a Hunter into a Priest matchup here.
Ooh.
So EPM is going to be playing that same Elemental Dragon Priest, of course, we just saw, as we saw yesterday. And Tufts, looks like this is going to be a mid-range Hunter. A snake trap. That is very interesting.
Yeah, so Eaglehorn Bow has been one of those really, really strong cards for Hunter for a long time. Some decks have decided to go all in with that card and go with the whole Seeker package.
Okay.
But mid-range lists, I have seen include them without running any secrets, or at the very bare minimum, 1 to 2 secrets. So we'll have to see if they're running a large Seeker package, explosive traps, freezing traps, or if they're just running the board-centric snake traps, cat tricks.
Explosive trap has been one that I've had my eye on for a while, just because this meta with the early Hunter quest, if people are playing that, or the Shaman quest, there's a lot of 2 health and under minions on that board. But yeah, it'll be a question to see whether they are running that. The snake trap, though, that's one we haven't really seen in any decks, but it seems to have a lot of synergy with a lot of Hunter cards because of the tokens. And there's a lot of token stuff going on in Hunter nowadays, especially with that nesting rock. It's so good in that deck.
Yeah, Hunter has gotten a lot of support for these token-based synergies. We have Knife Juggler, one of the stronger 2-drops at the moment. Crackling Razor Maw just always wants to have a target on the board.
Rat Pack.
Rat Pack, you know, Nesting Rock, another one of those cards that really synergizes with that tokens, especially in the Pirate Warrior matchup. If you do have something like Snake Traps or Rat Packs minions on the board, that Nesting Rock can be a 5-mana 4/7 taunt, and that can be really huge against aggro matchup. Not going to be the aggro matchup in this particular case, however.
Remember, we did see that Nesting Rock. That was how that Hunter earlier got a win against the Pirate Warrior, just barely, just by a smidge, but it was a big body, and that is very formidable at any point in the game. That Shadow Visions is going to come out, and EPM deciding, do we want some recursion here with that Shadow Visions, or do we pick one of these two? That's tough. The Holy Nova's generally good into that Hunter.
Yeah, as we said, there are so many tokens in the mid-range Hunter version, so that Holy Nova will be able to blow up the board more often than not. We do see Explosive Trap that we were mentioning coming into the hand here for Tufts, so maybe a little more secret package. But a card that we really have to highlight here is going to be that Crackling Razor Maw coming down on top of the Kindly Grandmother and being able to adapt that to a 4/1 Kindly Grandmother is just nuts.
Oh, and we are running face. He is not taking out that Northshire Cleric on the board. Actually, that makes a lot of sense because Northshire Cleric can't trade into anything without dying. So, of course, that's a very smart play for Tufts and pushing a lot of damage here. They have a 4/1 minion on the board that Priest cannot interact with other than just running into it with the Northshire Cleric. And then they're just going to be left with a 3/2 after that. That is, oh my goodness, that is a strong minion right now.
So Curious Glimmer, they are running one in the list. We saw it come out yesterday, and they have to choose which one. And, you know, Dynamancy, not a card we've really seen a lot of. Gonna go ahead and choose that Fiery Bat, the very safe option for any aggro or mid-range Hunter. So gonna pick that up. Probably not the most impactful card here for the Priest, but we'll have to see if it comes into play.
Does provide a little bit of early board and one extra bit of ping, and that is something that Priests do not have, any sort of a 1 damage ping. So maybe, just maybe, it might add a little bit of value to this game here.
Yeah, but the Hunter are going to be curving out really, really well here. A second Eagle Horn Bow picked up. Not really what they wanted to see, but that first Eagle Horn Bow going to be able to trade into this Curious Glimmer Rune, and they're just going to be able to continually push damage here with the Crackling Razor Maw and the token off the Kindly Grandmother.
I don't necessarily know that they weren't looking for that second Eagle Horn Bow. It's, you know, it's not maybe the ideal draw, but this now lets them just run both charges of their weapon without worrying at all about playing any secrets and extending the durability of that weapon. They can Houndmaster next turn and just continue to attack with the weapon and then follow it up with Eagle Horn Bow into a secret, which is just perfect curve.
So Twilight Drake, a really good card, you know, just drawn right on turn 4. That will be a 4-mana 4/6, a very formidable card for the Hunter to be able to deal with, and he's just going to flat out ignore it, and that's going to be pushing a lot of face damage here. You know, and we go back to some of the matchups of the past, you know, going into a whole new meta. Sometimes you have to look back a little bit. And Hunter has historically done very, very well into Priest. Priest not being able to interact with the Hunter's early board, and Hunter can just do what they're doing right now, push off face. They have an Eagle Horn Bow plus the hero power to go into the face on the next turn. So Tufts looking in a very dominant position, and EPM, very glad they picked up that Holy Nova earlier.
Yes, that Holy Nova is very nice, but in this situation, that Shadow Word Death is looking a little nicer. Takes out that taunt. They can then trade into the Houndmaster there, take a lot of damage off that board, and if they want to, they can use that last bit of mana to either play the Fiery Bat and can continue to contest the board a little bit, or just heal up and make sure that they start healing every turn to contest against the Hunter hero power, which is just going to just take all that healing right away.
Yeah, that healing is going to be very important in the next couple of turns, and we're really trying to, and this is end up going to be very similar to the last game, where they're just trying to stabilize through these turns 4 through turn 7, just trying to get that Primordial Drake online. Once again, we don't have the Dragonfire Potion in the hand. Would have been very good in the, coming up into the next turn if Tufts decide to go minion heavy wide on the board next turn.
Yeah, and about, I think the only card that would kind of provide the getting from the turn 4 to that turn 8 that we've been seeing EPM have so much trouble with in this matchup is you get the bodies on the board on 4, and maybe you run into a Defender of Argus, but we don't even necessarily know that they're not running Defender of Argus.
I don't recall seeing a Defender of Argus in their list as of yesterday.
Right.
So as we said, they do have the option to change it,
right.
but I don't believe that is currently in there. Not enough early cards on the board to be able to utilize that as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just consistently, this deck has troubles in that 5, 6, 7 turn. I guess not 5. 5 is pretty good for them. It just didn't work out quite this game. But the 6 and 7 turn, if they don't have a Bookworm and they need a taunt on the board, that's scary. You can't play a Bookworm and a taunt.
Yeah, losing Wormrest Agent and losing that Twilight Guardian really hurts the Dragon Priest and being able to sustain through that late game. We see here Tufts deciding to develop that Snake Trap alongside the Eaglehorn Bow. So if EPM does decide to trade in, that will be a board of snakes able to contest the board, comboed with the Hero Power plus the Animal Companion for the potential Leok or Huffer. However, Holy Nova going to be able to contest the snakes on the board very, very well. That
is going to be an interesting little interaction here. Just the fact that the Holy Nova would be able to clear that off, and actually, I don't even think they survive that round. Oh no, the Holy Nova would heal them. So yeah, yes. they would survive another round there unless the Huffer got procced. That would be still an out there for Tufts and EPM in a difficult situation either way. You know, they're scrambling at trying to stay in this game. The Holy Nova does come down first, which does work either way. They're avoiding the Snake Trap, and actually this provides them with a lot of board advantage right now.
Yeah, so choosing not to attack into the hero of Tufts.
That's going to be lethal.
Yeah, they're going to be playing around that explosive trap, trying to make sure that they don't get the extra proc away to the Eaglehorn Bow. But the pickup of that kill command will give game number 3 over to Tufts, and that you see there on the player cams, very exciting for them.
Yes, they are now 1 game away from being shipped off to those live championships over in Santa Ana. That is going to be a top 8, and that is going to be a lot of fun to watch. These guys trying their best to make it there. Rutgers now, that's going to be, they still have to get a win with this Priest, and it's going to have to be against the Warlock. EPM have a long road ahead of them. As we said, it's going to be rather difficult for them to get that win with the Rogue, depending on what the Rogue list actually is. Right.
And the Dragon Priest has been falling short a little bit.
Yeah.
Compared to the Taunt Warrior, which has very solid mid-game, being able to put taunt after taunt into taunt into these aggressive lists. The Priest having a little bit of struggling a little bit through that mid-game.
That Warlock, a Priest into Warlock matchup would be very interesting for me because there's only a few minions in the Warlock deck that the Priest cannot interact with. Only a few 4-attack minions. The Lokari Fellhound, that's Shadow Word Paintable, and that would be a big tempo swing. The Doomguard, well, it's going to do 5 damage, but you can Shadow Word Death it right after that, which is going to be a moderate board swing there as well. But the one to watch out for is that Ravenous Pterodex, which is a 4/4. If you kill a minion, you adapt twice. So you have to make sure that you don't make it Shadow Word Deathable, I guess, if you're trying to play around that. But it is a very good tool in that deck against Priests.
Yeah, very easily the Ravenous Pterodex can become like something like a 4/7 with taunt or with Divine Shield rather, and that's going to just be nuts for the Priest to be able to deal with.
Yeah, that is nuts.
Another thing that I want to break into is going to be the AoEs available to the Dragon Priest, and we are going to have a hand lock here for Tufts. Most likely.
Wow. That is not something I was expecting to see today, but oh my goodness, this is an interesting choice from Tufts to bring this. So they had the 2 aggro decks in their lineup, and they decided to bring the handlock as well to kind of round it all out.
So we do have to make sure if it is handlock or if it is some type of Kazakus Warlock. With rolling away the Abyssal Enforcer and getting another Abyssal Enforcer will identify it as handlock, but we have seen some players mess around with that cruel kind of Reno-less Kazakus Warlock, but not going to be what we're going to see here. What we are going to see is a humongous Razor Leaf in the hand here for Tufts. Yeah, and that is, as a turn 3 drop, a 4/8 minion. I don't know that it gets really any better into Priest than a 4/8 minion that is there on turn 3 and is going to be there for the rest of the game. They can then tempo into... Well, if they coin it out, they tempo into Earthen Ring and then the Defender. But either way, they're going to have a humongous Razor Leaf with a Defender of Argus proc on it, and that is going to be
unless EPM finds that Shadow Word Death, they're not getting through that anytime soon.
Yeah, so Tufts, with the Handlock, are going to have a lot of threats over the course of the game. We saw 2 Abyssal Enforcers. That's also going to be 2 Twilight Drakes, which are very, very difficult for Priest to be able to deal with. 4 attack and a lot of health, and not being able to interact with that Dragonfire Potion. So one to look out for in the next couple of turns here if Tufts are able to draw that. We also have the 2 Mountain Giants available to them and Faceless Shamblerers on top of that. So a lot of big threats. And the one thing that Handlock really has had a weakness in has been that healing. So we see taunts, we see a lot more taunts, probably double Defender of Argus, double Sun Fury Protector, and then double Earthen Ring Farseer, and 1, maybe 2 Siphon Souls for the healing.
Yeah, we've actually seen a lot of double Siphon Soul lists, which is a little heavy, but like you said, this list needs healing, and a Mistress of Mixtures as well, just going to keep adding on to that healing train.
So EPM probably not likely to know that their opponent are playing Handlock until they see this tap. So you see the smiles there on the player cam now discussing how they're going to change their game plan.
Right.
Mountain Giant into the hand of Tufts. That will allow them, I believe, to play it on turn 4 if they develop the Mistress of Mixtures on top of a tap on the following turn.
So the one thing to go back to, just turn 1 EPM passed. They didn't play down that Northshire Cleric. You know, it would have maybe contested the board a little bit against the early discard lock, but they were hoping to get some value out of it at some point during this game. The problem now is, how are you going to find value from a Northshire Cleric against a Handlock? You know, there aren't many minions in your entire deck that are going to trade into any of his minions and survive. So that's going to be a difficult challenge for them to find a way to get any draws off of that Northshire Cleric this game.
So we see the Humongous Razor Leaf coming out here for the Warlock of Tufts. That will allow them to top deck something like a Faceless Shambler or a Sun Fury Protector, and the Sun Fury Protector is already in the hand, to kind of just taunt that up and make it really hard for the Priest to trade into that because they cannot interact with that 4 attack minion. With their Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, and the Bookworms available to them. So that is something to look out for. And then they also have the option, they will have the Mountain Giant available to them on turn 4 next turn, and that will play into the Shadow Word Death, and we'll have to see if they evaluate if that risk is high or low enough. Yeah,
so another thing that we have to bring up as well is, you know, we were talking about the Defender of Argus on the Humongous Razor Leaf, and that actually doesn't feel great because it opens that Humongous Razor Leaf up to the Shadow Word Death possibility. But now we have a Sun Fury Protector in the hand, which can just leave it at the perfect 4/8 minion with taunt. Definitely an option, but they've got a couple of really big power drops in their hand right now.
This is going to be a tough turn for them. A lot of options here. Just another note: if you do Defender of Argus, the Humongous Razor Leaf, are you really sad if they Shadow Word Death that?
Not with the Mountain Giant in hand. No, you are not.
2 Mountain Giants, 2 Abyssal Enforcers, definitely cards that you would rather not have Shadow Word Death, and the Humongous Razor Leaf that cannot attack unless you silence it. A card that, you know, this is kind of just a big body on the board for a little while there. But Twilight Drake picked up, Mountain Giant available. Just 2 very strong cards. We highlighted the strength of the Twilight Drake before, but EPM has been able to amass quite the board presence this game.
Yeah, so that is going to be the balancing act here for Tufts, is making sure that they don't die before they get all this value out of there. And I was wondering if this was going to be the play. Another big one I liked was just the Twilight Drake, because it would allow the Sun Fury Protector to come down on 2 4-attack minions next turn, but that's just too slow when your opponent has 10 damage on board and you're 2 turns away from dying at that point. So need to get the taunt down. They decide to use the Sun Fury Protector, which does avoid the Shadow Word Death, doesn't bait it out, kind of like you were hinting at maybe, but does allow them to get that Mistress of Mixtures down as well.
Yeah, I really like to play the Sun Fury Protector into the Mistress of Mixtures, but this pickup here for EPM, that Holy Nova, will be very, very clean here, being able to trade the 2 5-health minions into that Humongous Razor Leaf, and then Holy Nova, and then get the final clear off with the Cabal Talon Priest if they so choose. So that would wipe out the complete board of Tufts, but the downside of that play is it leaves them a little weak to Hellfire.
So the other possible downside, and this is just out of an opportunity cost sort of view, is the fact that Northshire Cleric remains stranded. If you somehow are able to wait a turn and then pull that play off with the 6 mana, that would be amazing, and you would just shoot up in your hand size. So maybe was a slight consideration, but ultimately this Holy Nova is too tempting this turn, and they are going to just solidify their board advantage. Like you said, weak into Hellfire, and is there going to be one to work around? No, there is not. So Tufts just going to continue to try to make their way back onto the board.
Yeah, a little curious on those trades there. They did have the option to trade, as I said, the 2 5-health minions into the Humongous Razor Leaf, and that would have left the Cabal Talon Priest alive on the board. With that rope burning, you have to imagine they were just, you know, struggling to find the optimal play, but still a very strong board presence here for them. Twilight Drake going to hit the board here for Tufts on the handlock, and that's going to be very difficult to deal with, as we said before.
Yep, that Dragon Fire Potion not going to do quite anything into that minion there. And yeah, so they definitely did leave one fewer minion alive than they could have. Plays around the Mortal Coil that actually Tufts did have in hand, and I don't, not to say that they had that in mind at all. You know, that might be just like a little benefit, a little happy benefit that they found. And the other thing I think too is that they realized that this was the turn before Tufts could coin into that Abyssal Enforcer for the 3 damage AoE, so they were definitely feeling pretty safe at leaving both their minions at 3 health.
Very happy to see that there was no Hellfire in the hand here for Tufts. We will have to watch around that Abyssal Enforcer, but EPM playing around their around the removal available to the handlock and trying to get all of their minions above that 3-4 health threshold, so that the Twilight Drake isn't really able to trade cleanly into anything.
Shadow Word Death in this instance does look pretty tempting, but the Power Word Shield, we're gonna go with that and try to get some more just cycle through this deck. I only bring up the Shadow Word Death just because handlock has a massive amount of those large drops, but they do want the cycle for now. Curious Glimmerroot could be something that comes up in a big way a little bit later, because there's a lot of big threats in Tufts' deck that would potentially swing this game if EPM was able to discover those.
And it should be a pretty easy read to find out.
I would imagine,
as well. Just deciding, you know, it's not like you're early in the game. You're deciding, oh, is it Zoo? Oh, is it handlock? I really don't know. It's handlock. You know pretty much what's going to be in that deck, so probably a very straightforward pick from there. And getting a large threat off of that could give them the extra gas that they need to push through. As we said, the Reno Lock not having, or sorry, the handlock not having a lot of health regeneration like the Reno Lock had, and sitting at 14 life right now with only the you know, the Siphon Soul and that Earthen Ring Farseer in the hands, they're at a little bit of a touchy life total. Yeah,
they definitely have to balance this out very, very carefully. The good news for them is this Dragon Priest has no burst at all. The Dragon Priest of old had the massive burst combo of Bran into Blackwing Corruptor, a whole 6 from hand, or of course the double Blackwing Corruptor for the exact same amount, and they don't even have to play around that now. You know, Dragon Priest used to be very easy to play around in that sense, in trying to figure out their range of lethal, and now they really don't have any other than what's on board.
Yeah, Dragon Priest of old, very straightforward matchup. They put stuff on the board and they try to pressure as much as they can. If they lose the board, it becomes very difficult for them. You know, we used to say the Dragon Priest versus the Reno Lock was very favored for the Reno Lock. We're looking here. It's the new Dragon Priest versus the new Reno Lock or Handlock. And we're seeing a little bit of a different story here with, you know, how the matchup can swing back and forth.
Yeah, so, and a big reason for that is Tufts needs to really wait for that turn 4 to get onto the board in a big way. And EPM, with that Acidic Swamp Ooze, was able to get a lot of early pressure, and it's still alive. It's still alive here 5 turns later, and that speaks for itself, I think.
So Mountain Giant going to come down here for Tufts. They do have the Shadow Word Death available to them to destroy that and put the pressure a little bit on with that Acidic Swamp Ooze, which has been on the board since turn 2, dealing a lot of work here for EPM. Not, you know, the last couple games, they really haven't been able to get on the board against these aggressive decks.
Oh boy.
Against the more control deck, they have been able to get on the board, and it's really showing.
So they gave up the opportunity here, EPM, to trade into that Twilight Drake and leave everything alive. Of course, it would have left the Northshire Cleric and the Acidic Swamp Ooze at 1 health. But, you know, you take that Twilight Drake off the board, that is a big threat. They're just feeling very comfortable with their health total and their chances in this game. The only question is now, the Defender of Argus comes down on that Twilight Drake, and suddenly the trades aren't so clean for them.
Yeah, a very interesting point to bring up here, too, is that Earthen Ring Farseer. Do you want to heal up that Twilight Drake and then Defender both of them? That is a little, you know, that puts the Twilight Drake outside of, it puts them in the range of that Shadow Word Death.
Right.
But it would heal, you know, it would heal it up and provide a large, you know, board presence that would EPM would have a difficult time getting through. Or do you heal your own face? You are at a 10 life total. You don't have a lot of health remaining the Siphon Soul left, but looking for a good target there. So, and they will go with the Earthen Ring Farseer on the minion. That's going to be Defender of Argus coming down, and Northshire Cleric going to get a heal off of that decision as well.
Oh my goodness, so the extra draw comes down, the Bookworm in hand. They get one extra draw to fish for that second Shadow Word, or another Shadow Word Death, I guess I should say. And they're not going to find it. So, in this case, and in every case where EPM does not have a Shadow Word Death in hand, playing the Earthen Ring to heal the Twilight Drake and then Defendering both of them is the correct choice there, because it's going to act as a heal basically for your face anyway.
Yeah, so kind of a tough turn here coming up for EPM. That, you know, the Earthen Ring Farseer now becoming a 4/4 as we keep harping on that 4 attack, very difficult to deal with. And we can see it right here, a Shadow Word Pain and 2 Bookworms in hand. They would have really liked for that Earthen Ring to be a 3/3 and not a 4/4.
Yeah, that would have been very nice for them.
Yeah, the card that's really standing out to me here would be that Dragonfire Potion, and even then, it's a little weak. It doesn't do any damage to that Twilight Drake. They can trade in completely, and Dragonfire, that would leave it as a 5/1 and lets them play the Primordial Drake on the following turn, or you can just Primordial Drake this turn and clear off the Twilight Drake on the end this turn as well with the Curious Glimmerroot.
Right. That is going to be, well, they're setting up for that play, and it looks like that is going to be the direction they take. That Siphon Soul is going to be a rather handy card to have for Tufts. It could be a big swing, but they still have a lot of threats in hand that they need to get onto the board at some point in this game. So do they let the EPM board out a little, just one turn more and then Twisting Nether? Might be a little slow in this instance.
Yeah, and we really see the opportunity cost here for those Abyssal Enforcers. It's very, very high right now just because Tufts is at 10 life and they only have 3 heal into their hand. It's not like the Reno Lock where you can play those Abyssal Enforcers and those Hellfires and not have to worry about your health total. Those cards become a very, very real cost at this spot in the game if they want to develop that pressure onto the board, because that does give their opponents outs.
So Tufts has seen that Holy Nova already.
The one card that has damage from hand for the Priest is that Holy Nova.
Yep, I said 0, but they do have the one card in the deck, and they are through it. So none left for them here. And it looks, I was going to bring up this point here, that if you trade both into that Primordial Drake, the Abyssal Enforcer cleans up the board, leaves you at that 7 health, but makes your opponent's turn now pretty awkward. You have a very solid board state. You've got a 6/6 on the board. They don't have that Shadow Word Death in hand, and so they don't really have an immediate way to react to that.
Tufts, you see a little bit on the player cams, they're kind of sweating a little bit, and that 7 life is very, very sketchy.
Yes.
A Shadow Word Death here would allow them to get back on the board. They're very lucky that they get to have the Siphon Soul and the Defender of Argus both in the hand. However, nothing really to combo alongside the Defender of Argus, nothing to taunt up unless they get it off the top in the next draw.
Going just a touch off topic here, the Shadow Flame is a very interesting card in EPM's hand because all of their minions are such low attack.
Yeah.
And, you almost... I was just kind of thinking, what if there was a Priest card that was Shadow Flame, but with the health instead? That would be super good. That would be super overpowered for Priest. Have to be really expensive, but yeah, the Shadow Flame just not going to work out for the way their deck works. How crazy would that be if you could do a 9 damage AoE with that Bookworm for like 7 mana or something?
So they do have the option to Mountain Giant, coin out that Defender of Argus, or just throw down the Mountain Giant alongside the Sun Fury Protector. Siphon Soul has to look a little enticing, being able to clear that that large Bookworm off the board. EPM, not quite threatening lethal yet, but it is getting very, very close.
Yeah, I would say that putting them down to 1 health is definitely getting into close territory there. So Tufts has some more balancing acts to do, and they don't necessarily know for sure that there's only one Holy Nova in this deck as well.
That's true. And another point that I want to bring up, that Curious Glimmerroot that came down earlier, Tufts knows that EPM has not played that Warlock card that they got earlier.
Right.
There are so many burst spells.
Yes.
They run the Fellfire Potion, they run a Hellfire, they run 2 Abyssal Enforcers. That's got to be playing into their heads right now.
Yeah, that's the important part about the Shadow Flame right there, is that the fact that they're not playing it means that could easily be some sort of a Fellfire or any other, like you said, sort of burst that Tufts is running in their deck. So that is a scary prospect for them to be considering. The Siphon Soul comes down, they trade into the board, going to leave them out of range of pretty much anything that even they would have in their deck this turn. So playing very smart here for Tufts. They are trying to pick that 3rd game up right here and now and make their way to the live championships in Santa Ana.
So Twilight Drake, very strong pickup here for EPM. They do need to get ahead on the board if they ever hope to push Tufts out of this game. Tufts getting into a position where they really can't play that Abyssal Enforcer. They can't afford to play that Hellfire, and they can't afford to use their hero power. So it's just this Twisting Nether, Defender of Argus, and Mountain Giant going to have to carry them through the game.
Wow, that's rough.
If this Abyssal Enforcer and Sun Fury Protector on the board die to the Dragonfire Potion. So that Twilight Drake into the Dragonfire Potion, looking very, very strong here for EPM.
Yep, and of course, that's a Drake, so the Dragonfire Potion just going to be a nice magma-y bath for this Twilight Drake to bask in and watch all of his opponents suffer. We are a couple turns away now if Tufts cannot find an answer. That Fellfire going to be another dead draw for them that they cannot afford to play at any point in this match. We see the hands on the head here for Tufts. Oh gosh, the Hellfire into the Fellfire. Those are some rough draws turn after turn.
Yeah, and we see it. We're seeing it time after time. Just the lack of healing in the Warlock makes Handlock very difficult to play. These cards like Abyssal Enforcer, Hellfire, Fellfire Potion, they're great for pushing extra lethal damage if you can get ahead on board with Mountain Giants and Twilight Drakes early. But they weren't able to do so. EPM getting ahead on the board early, having the really strong resources that they needed to deal with Tufts' board, and EPM just slowly chipping away at that life total and narrowing Tufts out in this game. Going to choose
the
to
life tap. They couldn't get a taunt on the board this turn because the defender and all of their other minions were so expensive, and so they definitely playing to their outs here. They know they need more cards. And at this point, I think they have accepted that if that card that got burgled was a Fellfire, they may just have lost this game. They may just be irrevocably out of this.
But EPM still, on the other hand, they need to find board presence. That Primordial Drake is going to be a lowly 8-mana 4/8. So they're going to need to get that onto the board, basically ignore the Battle Cry completely, and then that Bookworm's going to have to follow it up to give the final punch. So it's going to be, an issue. Can the Dragon Priest find the board presence that they need to close out this game, and can Tufts find the board presence that they need to actually put the pressure on and take the pressure off of themselves?
That is a very difficult question here. It's so difficult for Tufts in this position. The good news for them is they will be able to play an 8/8 with Taunt this turn if they decide to. So that could be... The Doomsayer into Faceless Shambler is really bad into Shadow Word Pain, I think you almost have to go with the Mountain Giant into the Faceless Shambler. It is risky. You are not playing around the potential Hellfire or Fellfire Potion that they're probably considering is in the hand of EPM at this point. Right.
And that Shadow Flame, as we said before, a very weak card in this situation, but is giving them so many mind games here for Tufts, and that Curious Glimmer Root doing work in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Just adding that little bit of variance into your opponent's minds can make them play completely differently, and we may have even seen a case or two of that already this game. Not going to opt for the double 8/8 play. We're going to throw down the Defender instead.
Yeah, player cams, heads in their hands. They're very, very stressed in this current situation. A little curious why they didn't throw the Faceless Shambler down on the Mountain Giant.
I'm curious as to why, if you're going to do this play, why wouldn't you Doomsayer into Faceless Shambler into Defender of Argus? I mean, it uses a lot of your resources. I guess that's the big reason there. But
and Shadow Word Death picked up off of that Shadow Vision, saving it for the longest time. That is going to get rid of the Mountain Giant, push 4 more damage to the face, and that's going to leave Tufts at 2. No heal in the hand, unavailable, the tap unavailable to them. Gonna see here whether they decide to trade or not, but I have to imagine that pressure is going to be very, very tempting.
Yeah, I can't imagine they trade here, especially since they have the Shadow Word Pain in hand. I think Primordial Drake hits face every time, and they just... they may... I don't even think they use the Shadow Word Pain on this Defender of Argus. It's not a very threatening minion at this point. You're at 30 health. Your 4/8 Primordial Drake is not going anywhere. Lord Jiraxxus! Tufts! They're back in the game!
That is the biggest draw they could have possibly got. That Jiraxxus bumping him up to 15 health. A mini Reno, if you will. And being able to develop those 2-mana 6/6s each turn. They are back in it.
Oh my gosh. And not only... does that put them up to 15 health? But now, suddenly, all these cards in hand aren't out of the question. They can think about playing Fellfire. They can think about Abyssal Enforcer.
Wow, double Shadow Form here coming off of the Lyra. That is going to be 3 damage per turn coming off of that hero power. And just as the pressure turned back on EPM found the damage from hand that they needed to potentially close this game out even further.
Oh, so this is more than 3 damage per turn, Galestrom, because this is 2 damage this turn, and then it's going to be hero power into Shadow Form, resetting the hero power, and then into hero power again for a 5-turn burst that EPM is now able to pull out next turn no matter what. And I do think that is pretty much going to wrap this one up. Tufts, I don't see a single way that they can avoid that much burst. That is crazy. Double Shadow Form?
That was probably the best option off of that Lyra. And I was going to make a point earlier. Lyra is in the deck. We haven't seen it at all the last couple of games, not even hardly in the hand. We saw it in the hand one of those games, but coming in huge this game and really paying dividends for putting that legendary in the card slot in their deck.
Wow, just when we thought that Tufts may have been able to swing themselves back into this game, EPM just pulls out a huge high roll on the Lyra. That's going to be absolutely insane.
And that will be game right here.
Yes, it will.
They can trade into the Faceless Shambler. And as you said, they're going to use the hero power, upgrade it again. That will reset it, allowing them to use it yet again for 3 damage this turn. And that will be 5 from the hero power. And that will be the game here for EPM, taking game number 4.
Galestrom, we are going to a game number 5. EPM did it yesterday. Brio was able to pull it out on his own and send his team to the round of 16 where they sit now. But now it is on the full complement of the players from EPM to do the same exact thing. Go into a game 5, sudden death as to who makes it into the round of 8 in the live championship. This is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, no, this has been absolutely one of the best series that we've had this entire weekend. Just being EPM, just both yesterday and today, back and forth. It's been so exciting to watch these players, or, well, one player yesterday, but these players play today. And I am so excited to see how this whole series ends up.
Oh my goodness. That is Game 5, Galestrom. Okay, we are going to be going into that at some point during here, and off the top of my head, I'm trying to figure out that that's going to be the Warlock, of course, coming again from Tufts, and then the last deck that
the Rogue.
The Rogue. Okay, so that could be into the Handlock.
So yesterday we saw they brought the Quest Rogue. So and they were bringing a very aggressive Quest Rogue with the Stone Tusk Boar and the South Sea Deckhands and a lot of the Shadow Step effects. So if they are able to get the pressure on early against the Warlock, that could, if they high roll into that and get those Shadow Steps early, get those 5/5s rolling, the Hellfire is not going to do a whole lot. They're going to be relying on the one of Shadow Flame and the run of Fellfire Potion in order to clear off the board. However, the other point that I do want to bring up is the potential taunts in the deck of the Handlock. So we saw the Humongous Razor Leaf, the Ancient Watcher that came out there at the end, having options such as the Sun Fury Protector, the Defender of Argus, and that Faceless Shambler. Being able to taunt up one of those big threats is going to be very, very difficult for the Rogue to punch through that and have the longevity to continually punch through and win the game from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of give and take here, and a lot of it is just going to be based around that Rogue start, like you said, and how strong the turn basically 4 and 5 are for Tufts here on that Handlock, because those are some monster turns in a Handlock deck, and if they can get an 8 health minion with a taunt on the board, that is just going to be so hard for any sort of a Rogue deck to deal with, like you were saying.
We'll have to see if they have adapted at all over the course of between yesterday to today, and we'll have to see. We're going into game number 5 right here. It looks like they will be, once again, bringing that Quest Rogue out, and it will be the Quest Rogue versus the Handlock.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here in game number 5 between Tufts and EPM. One of them is going home, and one of them is moving on to the live championships in Santa Ana, April 22nd and 23rd. That is a couple of weeks away, and these guys are looking forward to making it there.
Yeah, so just getting into this game a little bit, a lot of discussion here going into this game for EPM. The Caverns Below, obviously, a very strong keep. The Youthful Brewmaster as well, probably going to toss that Edwin Van Cleef. And I guess a lot of the discussion is, do we keep the Novice Engineer? You want a lot of the bounce back effects, but you also need a good target to get them on. And what better target than something that draws you more cards?
Yeah, that is definitely... Mulliganing in this Quest Rogue deck is so interesting at times because you can... If you get too much of any side of your deck, you're in trouble. If you get too much of the minions that you need to bounce back without any of the bounce back, you're in trouble. But if you get all of the bounce back without any of the minions you're trying to bounce back, you are also in trouble. So it's this really difficult balancing act, especially on that mulligan, because that is the best time you have in the entire game to influence your hand.
Yeah, but that's just how Rogue kind of goes, right? We've seen that in the past with Miracle Rogue. You know, you can draw all of your early things and none of your mid-game. You can draw all of your mid-game, and it's just, I guess, you know, part of the identity of the Rogue class is you know, having those large swings, and Edwin Van Cleef is just one of those cards. If you get it out early, it can go nuts, but sometimes you just draw it at the end of your deck, late game, and it's just kind of dead. So we'll have to see. It looks like they drew the better part of their deck for this game.
Yes.
Looking over the hands of Tufts, though, they have both the Ancient Watcher, the Twilight Drake, and that Sun Fury Protector, and that will be a large board presence for EPM to be able to deal with without having anything like Saps or Vanish.
Yeah, this could be an interesting matchup to see kind of the best of both decks. This Rogue going to be getting through that quest in a very short time frame, and the Warlock, like you said, does have a lot of the tools they're looking for. They're going to be able to get onto the board in that big way on turn 4 with the Twilight Drake, the way we've been saying, and the follow-up appears to be there for those couple turns afterwards. So EPM doing a good job here. Of course, when you're playing that Quest Rogue, the big thing you want to do is never leave the minion you're trying to combo on the board. Even though in the handlock there aren't a lot of ways for them to deal with it, there is that Mortal Coil, so EPM doing a good job playing around that here.
Yeah, things
wow, that's a... Oh my gosh, so that is going to be a perfect draw.
Yes.
It does not...
They can't play it this turn because you can Novice Engineer, bounce it back with the Youthful Brewmaster, and that will be your whole turn.
Okay.
You can, you know, next turn you can play it, Shadow Step it, play it, and then prep the quest.
The thing you can do this turn, Engineer, Shadow Step, Youthful Brewmaster it back to your hand. You're on 3 Engineers. You have it in your hand to immediately complete next turn. A solid board presence. And when you're sitting at a Quest Rogue on turn 4 and you're deciding which way I want to get my quests done next turn, that is a fantastic situation to be in.
So all the cards really lining up for them. Stone Tusk Boar in the hand as well, so that will provide them for more additional damage in the future. But we have to once again mention that Tufts has a very...
Oh my gosh!
Ooh, that is going to be very, very good for EPM and tough for Tufts to be able to handle with. But like I said, that Twilight Drake has hit the board.
Yeah.
They do have so many removals and taunts in their hands. Will they be able to weather the storm this early for so long?
If there's any deck that can, it would probably be this one, or maybe the Priest doesn't even have as many taunts. The Dragonfire Potion's great, but you need those taunts in this matchup. And the thing I was going crazy about in the middle of your sentence there was the fact that EPM drew perfectly the amount of bounce backs they needed, and then they just started drawing all of their end game. The Morose, the Violet Teacher, both Stone Tusk Boars, these are all amazing cards after you've completed that quest. That is just insane that they have all of those in their hand right now.
Yeah, as you said, the deck really segmented into bounce back effects, good targets for bounce back effects, and then the end game, we have the Morose, the Violet Teacher. They came up a little bit early, but that didn't impede the fact that they were able to draw into the triple Shadow Step effect into the premier target of that Novice Engineer. So very, very strong start for them. Tufts taking a long time on their turn here, trying to figure out exactly how they want to solidify the board, knowing that that quest is coming right around the corner.
So I guess, you know, for EPM to go for that very aggressive, get the double Engineer play and get it back in your hand last turn, definitely does foretell, you know, you're guaranteed to get this quest done this turn. So Tufts gets the one extra turn of just saying, okay, they're guaranteed it. We have to start prepping now, as opposed to maybe trying to say it would be a turn later otherwise.
So I really like this play here for Tufts, developing the Ancient Watcher next to the Twilight Guardian,
okay,
or Twilight Drake. That will allow them to use the Defender of Argus, bump them up to 5 attack, and that will make it very difficult for EPM to get through those 5 attack and larger than 5 health minions on the board. However, quest already complete, and that, the Ancient Watcher could very well see a value trade in here, and, or maybe we'll just see them decide to go all very aggressive.
Right, so the benefit of going full aggressive here is kind of putting the Warlock in the same situation that we saw Tufts in last game, where there are so many cards in their deck that they can just not play. If you push 10 damage this turn between Panda Man and that Stone Tusk board, he's going to be down at 14. All of a sudden, he's not going to want to play Fellfire, even if he draws it. That's really tough, because he's going to put himself down to 9 and easily within range of this rogue.
Yeah, you see them taking a very long time on their turn there. They're going to go with your line of play. That's going to put them down to 13. A little bit of a punish here coming out with that Defender of Argus. As I said, those minions are going to be very hard to deal with. But with the Fan of Knives, the second Stone Tusk Spore, and as much value as they have, the Moreaus, the 2 teachers, EPM is far from out of this game.
This is just, their hand is crazy. Their hand is absolutely insane to me. The only thing that's going to be able to deal with Moreaus in Tufts' entire deck is that Twisting Nether and that Fellfire Potion.
Yes.
So they're not going to have the Twisting Nether next turn if that Moreaus were to come down. So it's at least going to get 2 procs if they decide to play it this turn. And oh my goodness, there's just so much going right for EPM in this game, and exactly when they wanted it to. Brio got them to this point alone, and now they're here all out. They got the draws they needed, and they are looking to push through here. But Tufts, like you're saying, both of these teams just have such good parts of their decks.
I just think that EPM got what they needed a little bit too early. Tufts, a great start, but down to 13 life already, it's going to make it very difficult to come back. I am curious. I was curious to see if they were going to drop the Doomsayer there, just to stop EPM from progressing on the board.
Yeah.
I do believe that might have let them play the Mountain Giant and the Sun Fury Protector. I think playing the extra card from hand would have bumped the Mountain Giant up a little bit too high of mana cost in order to make that happen.
No, I think you're right.
No, okay, it could have.
No, let's see. You play and then no, it would have been 6. You're right. It would have been off.
Okay.
Doing math a little poorly here.
Yeah. So okay.
Never do math on air.
Yeah, but they really needed to get to that. They're going to need to get to that turn 8 Twisting Nether. So that Mountain Giant will have to come down alongside the Sun Fury Protector this next turn. But Deckhand, Patches, Stone Tusk Boar. They have so much damage here, and that will be the game here for EPM.
EPM has made it to Santa Ana in a couple weeks. They are in the top 8, and they are moving on to the live championships of the Tespa Collegiate Series. That is just so awesome for them. And after we saw, again, Brio with the solo carry yesterday, his team comes today to back him up, and man, they got to buy him some dinner tonight.
Oh yeah, taking the team on the back, getting it across through to today, and bringing together, doing an amazing job today. It looked very, very, they were kind of had their backs against the wall. That Dragon Priest, it took them a while to find a win with that, and just an amazing series for both of these teams. Very, very close, and just so excitable.
Cannot imagine a better series to send somebody to a live championship. Oh my gosh, for both teams to be battling it right until the very end, that is exactly what you want to be seeing here. And speaking of that live championship, that is going to be happening, in a couple of weeks, and we have a lot more teams yet to come today that are going to be trying to make it there. We've got 2 decided. Rutgers, of course, they took down Vassar earlier in that 3-1, and now with L'École Polytechnique de Montréal, I'll throw it out there again, they take down Tufts, and that is going to be the 2 out of 8 teams already qualified.
Yeah, and we have a lot more games today, so that's going to be 2 of the 8 teams. We still have 6 more to be decided. Very excited to see how those games. And I want to touch a little bit on just from day to day. We have yesterday we saw the very first one of the first live streams for the Journey to Ungoro meta.
Right.
And as these teams do have the option to kind of evolve their decks over the days, like how actually have we seen much evolution? I know we've seen a little bit of the switch from that Taunt Warrior, and we've been seeing a lot more Pirate Warrior.
Right. Yeah, so that is something that I was very curious going into today with, because Ungoro as a set, it released and everyone started playing these very fast decks right away. But then almost immediately, it seems, within a day, it switched to very heavy control. And yesterday, the meta in this tournament felt very control style. It was, I would say, fewer aggressive decks than control. I don't know if maybe it was even, but it definitely feels more control-y than I'm used to in a tournament. And so I was wondering, do these teams decide to play some more control-y decks? Do they go really heavy, or do they go the other way, like we saw kind of Tufts try to do maybe, and go all aggro and try to punish those decks?
Yeah, very interesting. There's such a large variety of decks. We've seen anything,
Right.
we've seen Face Hunter and Mid-Range Hunter. We've seen Zoolock and Handlock. We've seen, Dragon Priest come out. We've seen that mid-range Elemental Paladin. We've seen an Elemental Mage. Just so many really fun and exciting decks coming out here for the journey to Ungoro. And I'm just, so excited to see how the meta is going to continue to develop over the next couple weeks. And even coming in, they have 2 weeks to prepare for the live championships. And so that will be a sight to behold, seeing how these teams actually discover what is good, what is not, and being able to bring the best decks and, finally make this long journey of the entire Tespa Collegiate Series, make it there, and, show what they have.
Absolutely. So speaking of how these decks are shaping up, we're going to take a look at how this East bracket has been shaping up for these guys. We've got Tufts. They made it past Rochester yesterday, but were taken down by EPM today. So just saw that one. And, of course, Rutgers taken down Vassar. So these guys, I didn't necessarily make this connection before, but they are going to be possibly facing off once we get to that live championship. I don't know if this is the exact bracket we're going to be looking there, but it does look like a possibility here. That would be a really, really cool matchup to watch.
Yeah, EPM and Rutgers both, very dominant performances over the last 2 days. So really excited to see if that does become a match later down the road.
Oh boy. So, and this bracket, of course, these two teams are moving on to that live championship that we've been talking so much about, and that is going to be in Santa Ana, California on April 22nd and the 23rd. That is going to be top 8 teams, and it is going to be an event to behold, so you want to be there. It's 1 day for $12, 2 days for $20, and both days are absolutely going to be worth it. So if you want to get your tickets, go to compete.tespa.org/Hearthstone. Pick those up. There's a lot of benefits. You get that $10 coupon off the online store. You're going to grab that Dollar and Flame card back, which is, of course, the easiest way to pick that one up, and a whole bunch more.
Yeah, no, that Dollar and Flame card back, absolutely awesome. Just the event is going to be so much fun. Just, Hearthstone, and more Hearthstone. Yep. And, what else? We enjoy Hearthstone so much, and just it's going to be an amazing event, a very community-focused event as well. If you've ever been to a live event, they're a lot of fun just getting to enjoy your passion with the people around you, meet new friends, enjoy the game, maybe learn a thing or two, and just get to watch some, very high-level Hearthstone with these teams doing so well here at the top 16.
And of course, like I said, you are going to get that Dollar and Flame card back just for attending. But if you can't make it and you still want to grab that Dollar and Flame card back, you have an opportunity. If you would like to get your tweet read out on air, send a tweet at us to Team Tespa, or go ahead over to facebook.com/Team Tespa. And if it makes it on the stream, you are going to get that Dollar and Flame card back. That is the other way to pull that one off. So taking a look at the next games that we have coming up here, we did, of course, been out over a couple times. Rutger over Vassar, EPM over Tufts. That's the East region down. We're moving up north next. Illinois going to take on Colorado State. Queen SU over Shawnee, and then we're moving over to the south. So that is going to wrap up game number 3 for us. We're going to toss it over to the British Bombshells. That's going to be Dan Gaskin and Excoundro, who are looking exceptionally good today. So you are not going to want to miss that one. We'll be right back.